Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. And I'm here today in the middle of the week to share another thought with you about the promises of God in the letters of the New Testament. And today I want to look at a passage in Romans chapter 8 and just verse 28. Now let me read it and then we'll talk about it some. And we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. Now, this promise has been used rather frivolously, I think, at times, and it's somewhat taken out of context. You hear many folks say, well, God allows everything to happen for the good. Well, that's not what it says. I mean, I know that's what people quote a lot, and I think that's what the problem is, because when you're in the midst of struggles, you're in the midst of despair, you're in the midst of problems that seem unended, for someone to come up and say, well, God brings everything for the best, that's hard to take. And that's not really the intent of this passage. We have to take the context of this passage in order to understand it. And the context is Paul's writing about the future of what's going to happen for Christians. Now, that's important because this passage applies, it says, to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. If you're one of those who doesn't love God, and let's face it, there are a lot of them out there. Maybe some of you listening to me are in that category. That God is not really a regular companion of yours. He's not a friend. He's not a confidant. He's just something. Well, for you to say everything happens for the good is really kind of sad because everything that happens isn't good. I mean, you know that. Car wrecks are not good. People getting killed by guns is not good. People getting sick and dying is not good. People losing their jobs and their finances are in such disarray, they don't know how they're going to eat. That's not good. People who have fires or other home disasters, that's not good. If you paid attention recently, the first hurricane hit Mexico not too many days ago, and hurricanes that destroy things are not good. So to say everything happens for the good and leave it at that distorts the promise that God makes. So let's look at what isn't distorted by this. Well, it says, and we'll go back and look at it again just so we have it straight. And we know, we meaning Paul and his folks are with him, they know that God, okay, God is the ultimate responsible entity here, that God causes everything, the good and the bad, the mediocre, the average, the exciting, the unexciting, the happy, the unhappy. God causes everything to work together. Circumstances work for a reason. The problem is, so many times, we don't know what the reason is. So to just throw out, well, it's for the good, isn't very helpful. I've had a lot of people talk with me over the years, and they'd say something like, well, I had a lot of good people who I know they meant well would come and say, well, it all happens for the good. And they would say, and that wasn't helpful. It didn't take care of the pain and the hurt. But it says God causes everything to work together, not individually, one event doesn't stand by itself. One experience doesn't define a person's future and their life. One time of experiencing disaster doesn't mean that it's all over. See, we focus on that one thing that happened and we say, how could this be good? How could this contribute to something good? And the answer is, well, by itself, it really doesn't. But together with all the other things that God's doing, He will cause that thing to do good for, here's the kicker here, for the people who love God and are called according to His purpose. When we choose to let God live in our life, and if you haven't done that, well, I certainly invite you to do that. I mean, what have you really got to lose if you think about it? But for those who have done that, then we get set on a path that God is guiding. And the goal is not to get us to tomorrow. The goal is to get us to heaven, to get us to the end of this life and beyond. And in order to do all of that, lots of things have to happen. I mean, think about it this way. You get up in the morning. What has to happen for you to get through the day? Well, you have to wake up. That's a good start. You have to get something to eat. That's another good start. You have to be able to breathe. That's a really good start. And then you have to do a whole bunch of things to have a successful end of the day. And if you can't find the socks that you really wanted to wear, doesn't mean your day is ended. If you end up not eating lunch the way you wanted to because you got busy, you couldn't get to it or whatever, doesn't mean that the end of the day is worthless and going to turn out terrible. But that one particular moment might be disaster. But even in that disaster, God is still looking at the big picture. He's still looking at the goal, which is to get you from where you are to where you need to be in His kingdom. So, in that sense, this promise makes all the sense in the world because it's saying that when one event happens or a series of events, maybe in your life you've had years of horrible experiences, those aren't the end of the game. They're simply part of a much larger game that God is directing for your benefit. So when we find ourselves in those times of trouble, we really can relax. That's not it. That's not all there is. That's not where it's going to stop. If we seek the Lord and choose to walk with Him. Well, you think about that. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you have a need or a prayer concern, let us know. We'll do whatever we can, as fast as we can, to help meet your need. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow with another promise from the letters of the New Testament.